It goes back all the way to the 1800s, right? And I'm not gonna, explain to you all the technicalities, but even all the way back to the perceptron, we've seen several innovations that have actually sparked waves of acceleration, right, and adoption, right? Even back in the 70s, we had concepts that now we're starting to talk about a lot, like RAG, right? This is, yes, something you hear about now. No, it's not completely new. And now actually we're seeing this, rise of GenAI. Right, and basically the rise of the chatbot, the rise of generative image generation. However, what we do know is that at the end, the value that organizations are really unlocking in mass comes from the battle-tested and proven technologies, the boring AI, right? And obviously there's still a lot of opportunity on the high risk, high reward from the other side, right? The new stuff that we're actually seeing, there's a lot of opportunity there, but obviously not everybody is going to find kind of like those golden nuggets. Now at Zalando, we have been using AI for a long, long time, right? Since inception. So we're using it across different use cases, things like search, recommendations, things like our fashion assistant, which we're going to cover in a little bit, but even more on the back office, right? The warehouse optimization, pricing, how do we actually capture demand with supply, right? So this is one thing that I want to really emphasize today, that not everything is going to be empowering your customers with chatbots. This is going to be a combination of embedded and great experiences that combine both interactive as well as automated capabilities. So AI is growing, right? And last year that I actually presented this number was about 500 billion, and it continues to grow very fast. We don't know if this is just, a bubble that is, continuing to grow, and maybe actually it's not that big. What we know is that at least, ballpark around, over 500 billion, and it continues to grow, right? 5x increase with over 100 million workers in AI. Obviously, this is not just developers, but this actually is people that are also involved on the labeling, on the marketing, on the sales, etc., etc. So this is just an industry that continues to grow and will continue to thrive, right? So it is important, as we all are in this room, to make sure that we're all, understanding the potential and capturing it where possible. Now, one thing that is interesting is that it is easy to find stories about people using AI, but when you actually try to search what is the ROI, right? That's often harder to find, right? Yes, it's cool. Yes, it looks nice. Yes, it feels useful, but how much money has it generated, right? And the good thing is that we're actually starting to see some success stories. So obviously, a company that most of us know, GitHub, they were able to achieve over 300 million of ARR in 2024 and still continues to grow. Adobe, in the B2B space, they were able to report over 1 billion with Gen Studio of ARR. And then obviously also the consultancies, Accenture, BCG, etc. They're also able to actually drive a lot through what is in this case GenAI bookings. And what is important here is to make sure that as, let's say, practitioners or business leaders or whatever your title is, that we are able to go beyond the hype and capture the value of AI, right? Obviously, the intricacies of what that means in practice is harder said than done, but at the end, what I want to give today is just a glimpse of how we have been able to capture some of those. Now, the kind of like last part of the motivation that I want to start with is this concept that we all know about, the funnel, and more specifically the marketing funnel, right? Awareness, consideration, conversion, right? However, when it comes to AI, this becomes significantly different. And there are multiple new ways in which we can actually capture that value, right? There are meaningful methods that now we can leverage for awareness or for consideration, or even being able to be much more targeted for the conversion. This includes also, hyper-personalization hyper-personalized experiences, right? That actually reach your customer, right? And that really meet them where they are, as opposed to forcing the product into them. Now, this doesn't only come with just high-level conceptual ideas, right? This again goes back and connects it to the ROI. And we've actually seen companies that accelerated their value capture, right? And we're actually seeing now a new thing that we have never seen, right? It's like now especially some of the AI companies, are measuring their time to 1 million to 100 million ARR, right? That's a big number. And the time to actually get it is shorter and shorter, right? Obviously, that doesn't mean that like this is going to be extrapolated and then we're going to days or seconds, right? But at the end, it's just basically saying like there is something out there that us as organization, individuals, practitioners, we can leverage to capture significantly more demand. So what are some of the trends? So in terms of the trends, let's start with hyper-personalization. So we know this end-to-end journey, right? But one of the things that we have struggled as well is how do we connect the off-site and the on-site experience? So let's imagine basically in the upper funnel, in the awareness, there is a targeted, there's an overarching, brand marketing advertisement. Then you actually get people to be interested in your website. They start landing on it. Then you actually want to get them into the consideration, right? Maybe having some meta advertisement. Then you want, once they actually land on your website, you want to keep them, right? Keep their attention, their engagement, make sure they can actually understand what is the sort of like core ethos and value of the platform. Then you want to actually then drive the conversion and then keep them coming, right? You don't want just like a single customer, you want a recurrent customer, a loyal customer. You want loyalty as part of the value that you're delivering. And then you want to also be able to be targeted, right? Not just blanket across everything, not just the same thing for absolutely everybody, because we all know that there are differences, right, from that perspective. And then obviously tackling your different types of channels. One thing that we're now seeing is how do we actually personalize this and how do we drive this connected journey across the entire end-to-end? What we're starting to see is basically being able to measure end-to-end, right? A lot of the times what we focus on is measuring a very specific part, right? And you have your performance marketing over there, right? That is optimizing the low funnel, right? And then you have your pricing team over here that is optimizing assortment-based optimizations, right? What we want is now to be able to measure not just end-to-end, but measure our customer lifetime value and also understand what are the trade-offs between your short-term commercial targets and acceleration targets versus the impact that could have on your sales. You then want to actually introduce optimization, right? So that you are able to say, okay, what do I move, what do I change? As well as then being able to go and even next level and drive kind of that dynamic experience, personalized experience to your customers. So for this, right, it's not easy. And the foundation is actually data, right? The boring data, right? Yes, GenAI, shiny, all that stuff, but we have to go to the basics. And a lot of organizations don't have those foundations in place, right? And want to run before they can actually crawl. Here, customer data in itself, and the combination of customer data with actually transactional data, like their behavior, their touch points, their purchases, that is something that actually like speaks more than you can actually like infer by, basically just looking at an isolated perspective. So this basically includes things like, on-site data, engagement data, personalized demographic, etc. Then that actually requires a privacy by design component, right? That empowers your machine learning, your AI, your advanced analytics, right? And then with that, then you have your different components, right? Your CRM, your performance marketing, and all of your other systems, right? But data sits at the core. And this is something that we will have to remember, right? The investment on data will enable AI tomorrow, right? So it's not the other way around. And again, this is not just about like putting chatbots in front of the customers, right? Like great experiences, often, yes, you can have the best website experience, but then suddenly if you receive your item, right, and it doesn't fit, right, it still sucks. So it has to be personalized end-to-end, not just on how the experience feels on the website, right? And for this, one of the things that I'm a big fan of is really driving it through algorithmic optimization, right? Having a target that you can get your system to automate against, right? Things like making sure that your planning and then your trading or your execution is happening in an algorithmic way, right? You're able to say, I want to maximize for top line, right? And what is my trade-off for, let's say profitability in the next 12 months, right? Because whenever you actually make a decision, there's a trade-off, right? You actually get your top line now, but then less profitability later. Or the other way around, right? So with that, particularly in an organization like Zalando, this means that we have to think about our entire operations, right? So this comes from the buying, the pricing, the reordering, the liquidating, and the planning, right? So from that perspective, all of this needs to be coordinated, orchestrated, right? And the great experiences come from a combination of great experiences on the web, but also great experiences offline, right? Connecting our on-site, our off-site, our online, our offline, right? So with that, those are some high-level trends. Now let's dive into some case studies, right? And I actually want to know, who here has used Zalando to buy clothes? Maybe give me a show of hands. Oh, that's great. Okay, so more people than actually use ChatGPT today. So that's great. Keep it coming. So these are actually some things that we're investing on, and hopefully that will make also your, in this case, web experience better. Obviously, we're also working on a lot of things on the back office space, right? But today, obviously, we're going to share the former. So we're empowering our customers with a couple of different investments, right? So one of them is our Zalando assistant. So actually, I would like to know, has, maybe again, raise your hands if you've tried the Zalando fashion assistant. Okay, much less. So we have an addressable market here. So I would recommend you to actually go to the website and give it a try, right? So this is basically, again, like the chatbot, the ChatGPT, but for fashion, right? I'm going to this party, I feel like this is the theme. What would you recommend, right? Here's a bunch of things that you can actually try out, right? And this is one of the attempts that we are really investing to meet our customers where they are, right? Giving them experience that are much more personalized and going a level beyond and trying to be proactive as opposed to reactive when it comes to those capabilities. A second one is the concept of the trend spotter, right? One thing that is actually hard in fashion is knowing what's going to be next, right? Here we're also applying algorithmic approaches in order for us to find trends, to find key potential styles that are emerging or that are relevant, right? And one of the things that we're really investing in our strategy is on inspiration and entertainment, right? We really believe that inspiration and entertainment are what are going to make our customers more loyal, more engaged, and at the end resulting in a higher customer lifetime value, right? Similarly, we're also exploring different experiences like live streaming. So live streaming basically able to engage also in a much more interactive way. And then there are other also GenAI applications that is possible to introduce when it comes to live video, right? So we're seeing actually when it comes to video generation, augmented reality, etc. And then finally, we're also investing in what is our feed, right? The landing page where our customers, first interact with us. So this is basically something that we're also investing in, these product lists. Customer engaged with other customers, being able to share your styles, share your fashion, what you love, and what you wear. So at the end, one of the things that I also want to discuss is the evolution of not just our AI-powered assistant, but the evolution of assistants in general. We're starting to see that it is not just about text exchange from one to another, right? Because at the end, humans, yes, we've invented language to communicate with each other, but language is actually a pretty inefficient way to transfer data, right? So there are other experiences that allow for this in a much better way. Obviously, video is the first one that may come to your mind, but actually integrated into the flows, right? Being able to make sure that these agents are able to engage with the customers in ways that are not just purely through that text interactions. So we're seeing that there's a lot of opportunities when it comes to different modalities, right? How our customers can interact with the interfaces, right? Perhaps they actually want to take a picture and be like, hey, what goes well with these shoes? Or what goes well with this jacket, right? And then we can actually say, have you had a look at these different things? And then combine them with even their search histories. So as part of that, we're also thinking about the concept of hyper-personalization, right? How do we make sure that also the experiences from our customers on the site or on the app are different and are engaging and are specific, right? And for this, we're also investing a lot in algorithmic optimization mechanisms and personalization algorithms that allow us to do that. Obviously, also as a European-based organization, we have to have an extra level of privacy first, right? And this is something that at Zalando, I would say, we pride a lot about in terms of investing a lot on that front. So that's some high-level overview on some of the case studies that we have. Now I have some closing thoughts, and it's actually pretty simple. I think the two takeaways that I want to really emphasize is number one, we have to collectively think about the experiences, the personalized GenAI experiences that go beyond the chatbots, right? We can't really say that we've managed to nail the customer experience with just chat interactions and chat interfaces, right? We actually do see that a lot of the innovative AI labs are introducing much more engaging, much more automated ways of interacting with the users themselves. So I think one of the call-outs it is on going beyond the chatbot. So when you leave this room, yeah, really think about that, right? And especially if you're introducing something within your organization, is basically how do I think about it more holistically across the experience. So that's the first one. And the second one is to really remember that the user experiences don't finish on the site, right? The end-to-end experience and personalization goes all the way, offline, online, on-site, off-site, right? And in your organization is thinking how to connect not just those components, but the silos themselves, right? And that goes to a certain extent data, and to other extent just organization, right? So those are two of the things that I wanted to mention. But with that, that was the GenAI Empowered Customer, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you very much.